Good morning. It is Tuesday, December 22nd, so here to start another weekly reading vlog. So I am about 170 pages into The Gilded Ones by Namita Florida, and so far this one's okay. I'm not head over heels. I'm getting more into it though. Not head over heels. I think it's just targeted to a slightly younger audience than what I tend to enjoy in YA, which is totally fine. But not head over heels with this one yet, but I still have over half of the book to go. So definitely still interested, by far still interested enough to keep reading. I don't plan on DNFing it at this point. I'm still having a good time with it, just not absolutely adoring it so far. But my plans this week include finishing this, and then my next I'm also listening to the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I'm finally starting the Broken Earth Trilogy. Very excited about it. I have 7 hours of listening time at the current speed that I'm listening to it. I have about 7 hours left of listening time in that audiobook. Robin Miles is such a good narrator. I love her. I love her so much, and she's doing such a good job narrating this series. So that's my current audiobook. So as far as my next read, I definitely want to get to Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar, and this is also a fairy loot. I absolutely love this edition. There's also gorgeous work or artwork under the dust jacket on this one as well, and I've been wanting to get to this one. This one sounds really cool. The audiobook is on Scribd, so I think I'm gonna do a mix of listening and physically reading for this one, but this is next on my list, and then after that it will almost be caught up on fairy loots. I still have These Violent Delights, and then December's should be coming to me today, but I'm doing a good job so far getting caught up on fairy loots. And then the next thing that I want to focus on after that as well physically is rereading the 4th Harry Potter. And so I want to do that kind of around the holidays. I think it's a perfect time. So those are the next priorities, and we'll see what else happens over the next couple of weeks or through the end of December. Oh, another thing I should mention, I got on Kindle. It's actually currently on sale, at least in the US, on Kindle. How the Duke's Still Christmas? I'll put an image here. It's on sale on Kindle, I think for like $2, and it's a collection of just 4 different historical Regency romance novellas that are centered around this time of year, around the holidays. And so I'm kind of thumbing through that on Kindle as I have time and kind of want to read that. So I'm a little bit into the first novella by Tessa Dare. Anyway, that's another random little aside, and if that's something you're interested in, hopefully it's still on sale, or it's on sale in other places as well. But yeah, so that is the plan for my reading for this coming week, and I will check in later. Good morning. It is Monday, December 28th, so I meant to check in this weekend. Yesterday specifically, when I finished a couple of books, but it's fine. Here to wrap up this reading vlog, and I have a couple of updates. The first one is that I finished The Gilded Ones by Namita Florida, and I definitely really ended up enjoying this. And I don't think it's my favorite fairy loot necessarily, but I did end up enjoying this. So this one follows Deka, and Deka is in a society where they need to go through this purity ritual and make sure that their blood is pure. So if you bleed red in this world, then you're normal, you can be part of society. And if you bleed gold, it means you have magical abilities, it means you're an outcast. And of course she bleeds gold, and so she she's ostracized by her community. She gets the opportunity to go to or join a military force that the emperor is forming. He's forming a special military force to help combat a threat that is kind of encircling on this land, and has kind of been a persistent problem. And so she decides to join this military force. So you actually follow her as she goes to this military training academy essentially, and she finds out more about her powers. She finds out that she's pretty unique even among people in this world with magic, and so she's trying to figure out what her magic is and what it means and where her place is in this society. And I say it wasn't my favorite, but I think that's mostly just because I don't know if I'm the target audience for this one. So I think just the writing kind of felt like it was geared towards the younger end of YA. I say that though, but there was still some pretty brutal content in here. So what happens to people who bleed gold in this world is very brutal, and she doesn't sugarcoat any of that. It's very brutal, and it's also, she's going to a military training academy to go on raids to kill some of these creatures that are kind of attacking different parts of their world. So parts of it are very, very brutal, but the writing kind of feels like it is geared towards a younger YA audience. So I don't know. Anyway, and there were also just a few questions I had about this world that kind of weren't really explained and that were a little bit confusing. So she kind of goes into a little bit of detail about, you know, people kind of being careful, particularly the year before if they think they might not be pure, then, you know, they're in particular very careful the year before their purity rituals so that, you know, people won't see them bleed. And for example, I'm like, no one has bled before the age of 15. Like, you don't know whether or not what color your blood is. And there are a few stories of, you know, people bleeding and then kind of being their parents trying to get them away as quickly as possible, so that they wouldn't be found out essentially. But anyway, there were just a few parts of this world that were a little confusing to me, but I do really love the concept of the story. I do love some of the characters. I love some of the found family and kind of the journey that our main character goes on to kind of start to find where she belongs. I really like where the story was going. I'm definitely intrigued to see what happens in the next one, and just kind of intrigued to explore more about this world. I thought the world was the most interesting part. And yeah, really what I wanted was an adult version of this story. Would have been like perfect, at least for me, but again, I don't know if I'm kind of the target for this, but there was so much that I was intrigued about, so I'm definitely interested to see the next one. There are definitely some, as I said, brutal stuff, so be careful and check some trigger warnings before going into this. It gets a little brutal, or there's reference to stuff as well that's pretty brutal. I think there's also some pretty great commentary in here about kind of internalizing terrible thoughts about what society says you are, and her trying to come to terms with learning that everything that she had been taught, that she needed to kind of relearn some of her paradigms and some of what she believed about the world, and believe that she wasn't unclean or impure. It was definitely very interesting. But yeah, the other thing that I finished, I listened to the audiobook of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, so I finally started the Broken Earth Trilogy, narrated by Robin Miles, who is absolutely brilliant. Love her. And this one is definitely a very interesting book. It took me a minute to get into it, but once I was into it, and I'm very excited to continue on with this series. So, I mean, the writing is just definitely very unique. So there are a few different perspectives. The overall, I guess, story of the world is that there are, on occasions, what are referred to as a 5th season, where essentially there are just a bunch of apocalyptic events, and there might be some periods of calm in between these 5th seasons, but there are, the world is basically very, very brutal, and you know, there are a bunch of apocalyptic events that can just continuously happen in these 5th seasons. And so you follow some people who have magical abilities. So in this world there are origins, and origins can kind of help contain these apocalyptic events. So it might be like tremors in the earth, earthquakes, volcanoes, things like that. So there are people with different kinds of magical abilities that can help contain these apocalyptic events, but their power is very, very feared because they can also help make things worse sometimes if they can't control their power, or they can kind of lead to some destruction if they can't control their power properly. So you follow a young girl who has just, her parents have kind of realized what she is. She's an origin, and parents have kind of realized it, and they're trying to hide her, but she actually eventually goes to, there's kind of a school for origins and an organization around the origins that's called the Fulcrum. And so you follow a little girl who is going to this school, and you follow her through part of her training. You also follow a woman and a man who work for the Fulcrum, who kind of help travel around and you get to explore different parts of the world through their characters, but they travel around and help contain some of these different events. They're starting to find out some things about the world that are making them question things, and so once they kind of start figuring some things out, they're starting to be targeted. You also follow a mother who her husband killed their son and kidnapped their daughter, and so you also follow her on a journey through different parts of this world as she's going to find her husband, and she picks up a couple people along the way, and she is also finding out more about the world and finding out that there are some different things that she is learning about the world. That perspective, the mother's perspective, is actually written in second person, which is really interesting. I thought it worked really well. I know that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I thought it worked really well and still felt pretty natural for this story. And I don't know, maybe it was just the narration or something that also kind of helped just make it seamless, but I thought it worked really well. But yeah, I really got into this story a lot. I really got into this world. I really got into these characters. And again, as I said, the narration was absolutely beautiful. I want this to be a television series so badly. And I think the rights to a TV series were actually purchased or optioned maybe at some point ago, but I haven't seen news recently of that. I actually checked when I finished it and realized, I was like, this would make a perfect TV series. I checked to see if there was talk of there being a TV series, and there was a while ago when it was optioned or when it was purchased, but I haven't seen anything, so I'm hoping that there can actually be a TV series based on this series, because I think it would make an incredible TV series. Anyway, but those are the updates for now. Those are the couple of things I finished, so just kind of wrap up this vlog and say that it was overall a pretty incredible reading week. I then started Stardaughter. I have it right here. Started Stardaughter by Shveta Thakrar. And so that's my next. I'm actually mostly listening to the audiobook, so that's my current audiobook of sorts, and then I'm also rereading, or going to start rereading the 4th Harry Potter, and that was the last Harry Potter I actually brought with me to reread and annotate, but that's going to be another thing that I do coming up. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more bookish content. I'll leave my Twitter and Instagram link down below. That's where I like to hang out. And I will also leave more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.